Hello. This is episode 3 of our series that has been dealing with selfishness in our marriage and how this selfishness affects the marriage. And the good news that we look even at how we can cure this selfishness using biblical truths. Today's symptom of selfishness is your love is conditional. You place conditions. You want certain things done. You say, I will love you if. I will love you when. There are conditions to your love. Let me just place a disclaimer here. I'm not talking about that extra love you show when your spouse surprises you with a bouquet of flowers. That's different. You didn't demand it, but your spouse surprises you with a bouquet of flowers. Then there's that extra adrenaline of love, and you hug them, and you kiss them, and you say an intimate, I love you. That's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about where you place conditions for your love. There's an interesting story in the Bible that I just want to take us through. Maybe I need to just look at my Bible. We all know the story of Samson and Delilah. But do you know that before Samson met Delilah, he had another wife? He had a wife. And that story I find very interesting because Samson identified this wife and told his parents, I have found a wife, and he went on to marry her. And in that time, the tradition was when you are getting married, there's a big festival hosted by the bridegroom for the bride's family. So there was a big feast, and it was to go on for 7 days. And as is the case in all feasts, Samson decided he was going to bring up this riddle. And he said, if you can answer this riddle correctly, he would give you 30 fine linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. But if you're not able to answer the riddle, then the in-laws would have to give him 30 fine linen garments and 30 clothes. And so he gave the riddle. And for 4 days, they were not able to answer it. And so, let me just read the verse. It's in Judges, and it's chapter 14, verse 15 and 16. And so, it says, on the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, coax your husband into explaining the riddle for us, or we will burn you and your father's household to death. Did you invite us here to steal our property? Verse 16. Then Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing, you hate me. You don't really love me. I'll just stop there for a while. You hate me. You don't really love me. She was giving him conditions. And amazingly, and we do this all the time, she was throwing the love thing back at him. You don't love me because I want you to do certain things for me and you don't want to do them. So you don't love me. Don't we get there sometimes where we decide, oh, you have to buy me a car. If you don't buy me a car, you don't love me. Now we are placing conditions and we are throwing the love back at them and saying, if you don't do this, it's you who doesn't love me. I wonder about that. You find people saying, I must get some. 6 days of every week, we will rest only on Sundays. And if that doesn't happen, it'll tell me that you don't really love me. Those are the conditions we place on our spouses. And so in David's case, I continue with verse 16. He said, "You hate me. You don't really love me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer." And David says to her, Samson says to her, "I haven't even explained this one to my father and mother. So why should I be explaining it to you?" She cried the whole 7 days of the feast. So on the seventh day, he finally told her, because she continued to press him. And in turn, she explained the riddle to her people. So Samson has been given a condition for love. He has been told, look, if I am going to love you, of course she threw it at him. If you love me, tell me the answer to this riddle. Now, if you continue with this scripture, you will realize that as a result of this, Samson was angry. And because his in-laws finally did tell him the answer to the riddle because she had told them. So he's angry. And he goes and he gets Philistines. These are those people. They are people. And he kills 30 of them and takes their garments and their clothes and gives it to his in-laws. And eventually, his father realized this guy might not really love this bride of his. And the bride was given to another friend. So that marriage, because of these conditions, broke. And that's what I think is important that we capture here. The marriage didn't work because of these conditions that had been placed on it. Okay, so we are talking about the conditions that we place on our marriages. So let's look at the effects that these conditions have. When we place conditions on our marriages, the affected spouse begins to feel insecure. Because we have placed conditions, the spouse begins to feel insecure. We talked about the car. We said, look, if you can't buy me a car, then you don't love me. Now, if your spouse cannot buy that car, he begins to feel insecure. He begins to feel, hey, maybe she's going to look for somebody else who can buy her that car. It brings insecurity. If you cannot meet those conditions, it begins to bring insecurities. And by the way, if they do meet the condition and buy the car for you, you will find something else that you need and you will place it as another condition. On the other hand, maybe the spouse was saying, I must get some 6 days of every week, but you can only manage 3. So these are the 3. Are they going to look for it somewhere else to cover these other 3? You begin to get insecure. Another thing is there's the lack of stability in the marriage. And there's also a lack of trust. Like we said, if I can't do this, maybe they will begin to look for it elsewhere. And you begin not to trust. So you're feeling insecure and you're not stable in your marriage and you don't trust. And third thing, if the conditions are not met, or if the conditions for some reason or another are never met, then you who has set these conditions begins to run out of patience. And this, of course, brings us to the danger of the marriage breaking. Once you run out of patience, then there's friction in the marriage, and the marriage is likely to break. What is the cure for this then? I think the obvious cure is, if your love is conditional, the cure to conditional love would be unconditional love. The cure is unconditional love. This is the love where even if you get nothing in return, you will love. Even if you are not loved back, you will love. Even if your spouse is a naughty person, you will love. This is the kind of love that Christ has for us. It is called agape love. Romans 5, verse 8, the second part, it says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. while we were still sinners. We were not good people. We were sinners. Yet Christ loved us so much that in our state of sin, he chose to die for us. We were bad people. We were sinners. But Christ died for us. This is the love that we are asked to love our spouses with. Agape love, unconditional love, just love. It doesn't matter what they do or don't do for you. Love. So let's look at agape love a little bit. Agape love is unconditional love. This is the highest form of love. It is the love that God has for us and the love that we should have for God. It is also the love that we should have for our spouses. This is the love that a man must show his wife and that a wife must show her husband. Unconditional love. Agape love. That's it, friends. Next time we'll look at episode number 4 and we'll address another trait of selfishness that has a biblical cure.